Now we arrive at the heart of the listing contract: compensation. This is where the broker's right to get paid is created, defined, protected, or accidentally destroyed. Page 2 is not just about percentages, it is about enforceability, disclosure, negotiation, and compliance with Arizona law and the 2025 rule updates, emphasizing clarity and transparency in compensation practices. Under ARS, paragraph 44-101, Statute of Frauds, a broker may not recover compensation for the sale of real property unless the employment agreement is in writing. Under ARS, paragraph 32-2153, failure to properly document compensation agreements can result in discipline. Under AAC, R428-1101, licensees must act with reasonable skill, care, and honesty in financial matters. This section must be precise, complete, and clearly explained to the owner. Let's break it down. Compensation is fully negotiable, transparency, and consumer protection. The bold language stating that listing broker compensation is not set by law, by any association, or by MLS is critical. This reinforces that commissions are negotiable. This language protects both the consumer and the broker. Why this matters: Arizona regulators and federal authorities have scrutinized commission practices nationwide. Clear language confirming negotiability protects against claims of price fixing or misleading practices. Example: if a seller believes commissions are always 6 apples and no discussion occurs, that seller could later claim they were misled. This paragraph reinforces negotiation and discussion. Discussion question: why is it important to have a documented conversation with the owner about the negotiability of compensation? Answer: to avoid future disputes, ensure informed consent, and comply with transparency standards required under Arizona law and professional conduct rules. All funds in U.S. currency, practical but protective. This clause may seem simple, but it prevents confusion. Payment in cryptocurrency, foreign currency, or non-traditional methods could create valuation disputes. The agreement requires clarity. Owner initials, informed consent. Requiring initials ensures that the owner acknowledges understanding the compensation structure. This reduces the likelihood of future commission disputes. Retainer fee, earned when paid. If selected, the retainer is non-refundable and earned when paid. This is significant. A retainer compensates the broker for consultation, research, pricing analysis, photography coordination, and marketing preparation. Important: the agreement specifies whether the retainer is credited against final compensation. That distinction must be explained clearly. Example: a luxury Scottsdale property requires drone photography, staging consultation, and professional video. A broker charges a $2,500 non-refundable retainer credited toward commission at closing. If the seller cancels after 2 weeks, the retainer protects the broker's upfront investment. Discussion. Question: why must the retainer state whether it is credited against commission? Answer: because ambiguity could lead to claims of double compensation or improper fee handling. Listing broker compensation, the core commission clause. This section establishes that compensation is earned if the broker produces a ready, willing, and able buyer or tenant in accordance with the agreement. The owner sells the property themselves during the listing term. Another broker sells the property during the term. This is the power of exclusive right to sell. The phrase ready, willing, and able is legally significant. Historically, Arizona courts have upheld a broker's right to compensation if they produce a buyer who meets the seller's terms, even if the seller later refuses to close without legal justification. Example: a buyer offers the full list price with proof of funds. The seller changes their mind and refuses to sell. The broker may still be entitled to compensation because they fulfilled their contractual obligation. Discussion. Question: if the seller refuses to sell after a full price offer is received, Is the broker automatically entitled to compensation? Answer: potentially yes, if the buyer met all terms and was ready, willing, and able. Each situation must be analyzed carefully. Sale percentage or flat fee. Clarity is everything. The agreement allows either a percentage of the full purchase price or a flat dollar amount. The term full purchase price is critical. It ensures compensation is calculated on the total contract price, not net proceeds. Valley example: if a property sells in Gilbert for $600,000 with 3 apples commission, compensation equals 18,000 apples. If a flat fee of 15,000 apples is used instead, that changes the financial structure. The owner must understand the difference. Additional listing broker compensation, unrepresented buyer. This clause addresses scenarios where the buyer has no buyer broker. If the owner agrees, the listing broker may receive additional compensation for handling both sides. This must be explained carefully to avoid confusion with limited representation under Section 6. Discussion. Question: why might a broker request additional compensation for an unrepresented buyer? Answer: because the broker may perform additional work normally handled by a buyer's agent, increasing workload and risk exposure. Buyer-broker compensation, authorization, and disclosure. This section has become especially important in modern practice. It clarifies that the owner may authorize communication of willingness to compensate a buyer-broker. Compensation requests should be set forth in the buyer's offer. The buyer-broker represents the buyer, not the seller. Buyer-brokers may credit compensation to the buyer. This reinforces agency clarity under AAC R428-1101 and avoids confusion regarding representation. Example: a buyer submits an offer requesting 2.5 apples buyer-broker compensation. The seller can accept, reject, or counter that request as part of the negotiation. Nothing is automatic. Discussion question: why must compensation requests from buyer brokers be set forth in the purchase offer? Answer: because compensation becomes part of the negotiated transaction terms and must be clearly documented. Rental compensation, structure and calculation. For rentals, compensation is calculated on the gross rental amount for the entire initial lease term. Example: a 1-year lease at $2,500 per month equals $30,000 total rent. If the listing broker's compensation is 8 apples, the earned fee equals 2,400 apples upon lease execution. Clear calculation methods prevent disputes. Unrepresented tenant, additional compensation. Similar to unrepresented buyer provisions, this addresses the increased workload when no tenant broker is involved. Tenant broker authorization, transparency. Again, the owner must authorize communication of willingness to compensate a tenant broker. This reinforces negotiability and informed consent. Rental renewal or extension, protection beyond expiration. This is a powerful clause. Even if the listing agreement has expired, if the tenant renews or extends the lease, the owner agrees to pay compensation within 5 days. Why this matters. Without this clause, a landlord could wait until the listing expires, renew the tenant, and avoid paying compensation. This clause protects the broker's investment in procuring the tenant. Example: a Mesa rental tenant signs a 1-year lease. 11 months later, they renew for another year. The renewal compensation clause ensures the broker is paid as agreed. Discussion question: why does this renewal clause apply even if the listing agreement has expired? Answer: because the broker originally procured the tenant and created the relationship that resulted in renewal. Risk management and legal protection. Compensation disputes are among the most common causes of litigation between brokers and clients. Clear drafting protects the broker's right to compensation, the owner's understanding of obligations, compliance with Arizona statutes, transparency in commission negotiations. Under ARS, paragraph 32, 2153, improper commission practices may result in discipline. Under R4 28-1103, brokers must supervise compensation policies and documentation. This page is not just numbers, it is your paycheck and your compliance shield.